From his KO of Dawkins to the insane win over Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blaydes has been on an absolute tear in the heavyweight division. And even Jon Jones might face destruction at Blaydes' hands soon. I mean, just look at what he has accomplished. The man is the number 3 ranked guy in the heavyweight division.
Declaring the winner by TKO, Curtis Razor Blaydes.
And he's one of the most powerful guys in all of the UFC. Plus, his record is outstanding. I mean, it's champion material. The guy's won 7 of his last 8 fights, and the only loss he had was against another behemoth of the division, Derek Lewis. And just by the way, this loss came back in 2021. Yeah, Razor has fought 3 times since then, and all 3 fights ended in wins.
Declaring the winner by TKO, Curtis Razor Blaydes!
And not just wins, guys. Very dominant wins. I mean, both of his fights in 2022 ended in KOs. Yeah, the man had 2 fights in the year and was only in the octagon for a total of 32 seconds. It's no surprise that he's so high up in the division. But how has he managed to be so dominant in such a strong era of heavyweights? Well, the answer lies in his fighting style. I'll say one word, and those of you who are proper fight fans will understand. Boring. We all know what that means. Blaydes' fighting style, which has been very unfairly called boring over the years, is heavily reliant on wrestling. For crying out loud, the guy is a collegiate-level champion wrestler. Unsurprisingly, he's been able to ragdoll some of the most terrifying heavyweights of the current era with these insane skills. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I love how technical some guys can be on the canvas. I mean, look at what the Dagestanis are doing. The wrestling-based fighting styles are some of the most entertaining and scary ones to watch. Plus, Jon Jones, the UFC's golden boy. His style also relies on wrestling, but no one seems to find him boring. I mean, sure, he's an amazing striker and he keeps things interesting, but guys, so does Blaydes. He takes a safer approach, but he's as good a striker as anyone in the division. The guy scored sub 20-second KOs in both of his last fights. Anyway, the man's talked about this whole boring style accusation before, and he's made it pretty clear what his priorities are. All Curtis cares about is winning, and this mindset's been working for him. I mean, he's a direct threat to Jones right now. If the two were to face off, Blaydes is gonna be a threat. Yeah, despite John's dominant win over the number 1 guy of the division, Cyril Gane.
UFC Heavyweight Undisputed Champion of the World, Johnny
Blaydes is genuinely in a different league. Honestly, in a fight between him and the French interim champ, I think Razor would easily take the win. His only issue is that he doesn't talk smack, and so the UFC's been slow to let him up the rankings. But he's fought and won up to the number 3 spot, and unlike Gane, he could be a huge problem for Bones. I mean, for one thing, he's a champion wrestler, and for another, he's much bigger than Jones. Anyone who knows about John's success at light heavyweight knows that he relied heavily on his size to win. And this isn't to say that he wasn't one of the best guys to ever walk into the octagon.
Now he's going for Kimura.
It is all over! Jon Jones remains the UFC light heavyweight champion!
I'm just saying that his natural advantages were a huge factor, and now that he's at heavyweight, in a fight with Curtis, all of those size and reach advantages will belong to Razor. Not only that though, because the number 3 ranked heavyweight has some serious power in his punches. He's got that one-punch KO power. Size, explosiveness, and even wrestling would all be huge advantages for the fighter in a match with Jon. And I'm not the only one who thinks so either. Big John McCarthy weighed in on this potential matchup before, and it was back when Jon versus Ngannou was in the works. The legendary referee spoke about how if Francis didn't work out, one of the greatest matchups the UFC could make was Jones versus Blaydes. And I mean, it makes sense. As I said before, Curtis is a huge guy, and his wrestling game is extremely strong. Plus, he's got intense power as well. And while McCarthy didn't make any predictions, he let everyone know this would be a tough one. If anyone's gonna test Jones's apparent invincibility, it's this guy. Now, while while Big John wasn't extremely specific, he wasn't the only pro to speak about this potential matchup. Yep, Josh Thompson also shared his thoughts. And for those of you that don't know, Josh was a big prospect for the UFC back in the day, and he even fought at Bellator and Pride. Yeah, this guy's a true pro of the MMA game. Needless to say, he knows what he's talking about, and he brought up something that both DC and Dan Hardy have talked about before: Jones's cardio at heavyweight. According to Josh, in a match versus the absolute gas tank of Blaydes, we'd get to see Bones struggle. In fact, he even went so far as to claim that this was the toughest matchup for John in the division. Now, I agree with this assessment, but how likely is this fight to happen? Well, that kind of depends on what Razor can do in his next fight. Yep, after a dominant 2022, where Razor won 2 matches via 2 brutal KOs within the first 20 seconds, some people, including Blaydes himself, thought that he deserved the next shot at the title. Yeah, we all know that didn't happen, and Gon got to fight for the title against Jones. But this doesn't change the fact that Blaydes is an absolute force in the division. And now that Bones has beaten Bon Gaiman, Blaydes' turn is coming up. But before that can happen, he needs to prove himself one last time in his next fight against Sergey Pavlovich. That's easier said than done because Pavlovich is currently number 4 of the division, just 1 rank behind Blaydes. Both of these guys are beasts. Yep, if Razor can put down this dominant up-and-comer of the division, there's almost no doubt he's getting a shot at Jones. But it's important to remember that John also needs to do his part for this to happen. That's right, he needs to get through Stipe. And as great as Bones is, Stipe is the big dog of the heavyweight division. He's without a doubt the greatest heavyweight in the history of the division.
For the winner by unanimous decision, and still the undisputed UFC heavyweight champion of the world.
And it's confirmed that he's the next guy John's gonna be fighting.
Oh, yeah, baby. Y'all want to see me beat up Stipe? One thing I know about the UFC is we give the fans what they want to see. Stipe Miocic, I hope you're training, my guy.
And if Bones wins this fight convincingly, it's possible that Stipe won't get the rematch, and the UFC gives Blaydes his much-deserved shot. But we all know how rare it is for things to happen so neatly in this game. What'll probably happen whether John wins or not is that there will be a rematch, and then even after Bones and Miocic have settled their score, depending on how that whole thing shakes up, Curtis might have to take on Stipe and beat him before he's able to get to John. But honestly, the fans are sleeping on this guy. He's good enough to be able to beat both John and Stipe. And sure, he'd need to get considerably lucky, but even in the worst case scenario where he has to fight Stipe, we'll probably be seeing a Jones versus Blaydes fight before his 8 fights are up. That was a breakdown of how Blaydes is one of the most powerful guys in all of the UFC.